Hello, esteemed gentlemen. A harmless man is not a good man. A good man is a very dangerous man who has that under voluntary control. Jordan Peterson. Society loves to sell the fantasy that a man should be soft, agreeable, and easy to control. But here's a fact. History has never been shaped by weak men. Every empire, revolution, and dynasty was built by those who embraced their inner beast, not by those who played it safe. Now let's be clear. Being a monster doesn't mean being reckless or cruel. It means being powerful beyond belief. It means having the ability to tear the world apart, but the discipline to decide when, where, and how to strike. And yet most men are afraid of their own strength. They walk around defanged, domesticated, and convinced that being nice will get them somewhere. Spoiler alert, it won't. In a world where the ruthless make the rules, the weak get ruled. So, if you want to unlock your true power as a Sigma male, you don't need another self-help book. You need to become a monster, a force so sharp, so controlled, and so untouchable that the world has no choice but to respect you. Let's break down exactly why and how. Number 1. You must be the villain in someone's story. If no one hates you, you're not doing anything important. The harsh truth is that every man who rises, every man who builds something real, and every man who refuses to conform will inevitably become the villain in someone's story. And that's not just acceptable, it's necessary. Weak people want the world to be fair. They want success to come without stepping on toes, without disrupting the status quo, without making enemies. But the world doesn't work like that. The moment you decide to prioritize yourself, push beyond mediocrity, and break free from the expectations placed on you, you're going to upset people. People don't hate weakness. They ignore it. But strength, power, independence, that makes people uncomfortable. It reminds them of their own limitations, their own excuses, their own failure to act. They won't say it outright, but they'll resent you for proving what's possible while they remain stuck. Some will call you selfish. Others will say you've changed. A few will even try to bring you down. And that's the price of power. The world isn't kind to men who refuse to be controlled. The moment you stop explaining yourself, stop seeking approval, and start living by your own code, you cross a line most people never dare to approach. You become unpredictable, you become untamed, you become exactly what society fears, a man who cannot be manipulated. Great men throughout history have always been seen as villains in their time. They were feared, misunderstood, even despised. But in the end, they shaped the world while their critics faded into nothing. So let them hate, let them talk, let them misunderstand you, because if you aren't the villain in someone's story, then you're not the main character in your own. Number 2. The path to greatness requires blood, metaphorically or not. Greatness isn't handed out, it's taken. And taking it comes with a cost. Every man who has ever built something extraordinary has had to spill blood, whether it's his own through suffering and sacrifice, or his competition's through dominance and destruction. The weak think success is about luck, talent, or waiting for the right time. The truth, it's war. You either kill your old self, the doubts, the bad habits, the excuses, or you stay the same, rotting in mediocrity. You either crush the competition, outwork them, outthink them, outlast them, or you get buried beneath them. You either sacrifice something, comfort, relationships, security, or you remain chained to an average life. There is no path to greatness that doesn't demand blood. Some men try to play it safe, to rise without making enemies, without taking risks, without suffering. They fail. Because the universe doesn't reward hesitation. It rewards those willing to bleed for what they want. And here's the brutal truth. If you don't have the stomach to spill blood, metaphorically or otherwise, you don't deserve to win. Number 3. Only a monster can walk the path to ultimate freedom. Most men think they want success. They chase money, status, validation, believing these things will set them free. But real freedom isn't about what you own. It's about what you control. And the only thing worth controlling is yourself. Freedom means never answering to anyone. It means no boss dictating your time, no relationship shackling your choices, no society pressuring you to fit in. It means moving when you want, doing what you want, and owing nothing to anyone. But here's the hard truth. Freedom isn't given. It's taken, and only a monster has the will to take it. A monster doesn't compromise. He doesn't beg for permission. He cuts off anything that tries to chain him, whether it's a toxic relationship, a dead-end job, or the opinions of people who don't matter. He understands that true freedom comes at a cost, and most men are too soft to pay it. The weak stay trapped because they fear the sacrifices required. They fear walking alone. They fear being hated. But a monster, he welcomes it. Because he knows that on the other side of that pain, that loneliness, that ruthlessness, is the only thing worth having. Absolute, unshakable, untouchable freedom. Number 4. The world respects ruthlessness, not kindness. Society lies. It tells you to be kind, to be patient, to play fair, because that makes you easier to control. But look around. Who actually wins? Not the nicest men, not the most generous. The ones who take what they want without hesitation. The ones who understand that power isn't given, it's seized. Kindness is only respected when it comes from a position of strength. When it comes from weakness, it's dismissed, ignored, or exploited. A man who is kind without power is just another pawn in someone else's game. A man who is ruthless when necessary. He controls the board. The world runs on dominance. Corporations don't rise by playing fair. They crush the competition. Powerful men don't beg for opportunities. They create them by force. Nations aren't built on kindness. They are forged through power and control. Being a monster doesn't mean being cruel for no reason. It means knowing when to strike, when to take, and when to walk away without guilt. Because in the end, the world doesn't care about your kindness. It only respects your ability to enforce your will. Number 5. The strongest predator is always a loner. The most dangerous creatures on the planet don't hunt in groups. They hunt alone. The jaguar doesn't need a pack to take down its prey. The great white shark doesn't share its kill. The lone wolf, despite all the cliches, isn't weak. It's a master of survival. Human society conditions men to believe they need a tribe, a group, a constant support system. But true strength comes from self-reliance. The moment you stop depending on others for validation, direction, or survival, you become something rare, a man who answers to no one. Most people are terrified of solitude because they don't know who they are without the noise of others. They need social circles to define them, relationships to give them purpose, and authority figures to tell them what to do. A monster. He thrives in isolation. He uses it to sharpen his mind, perfect his skills, and become so powerful that he doesn't need anyone. But everyone needs him. The strongest predator isn't the one with the biggest group. It's the one who can stand alone, undefeated and untouchable. Number 6. Sigma strength comes from unfiltered selfishness. Selfishness has been demonized for one reason. It makes men uncontrollable. Society conditions you to put others first, to sacrifice your time, energy, and ambitions for the greater good. But look at the men who actually shape the world. They are unapologetically selfish. A true Sigma doesn't waste his life pleasing others. He doesn't dilute his goals to make people comfortable. He doesn't feel guilty for putting himself first, because he understands something most men never will. You cannot build power if you're constantly giving it away. Weak men think selfishness is about greed, but in reality it's about control. When you prioritize your own evolution, you become sharper, stronger, and more capable. You no longer rely on others for approval, direction, or purpose. And ironically, that's what makes you valuable. People respect those who don't need them. The world rewards the selfish because they're the ones who take action. They build, they conquer, they rise, while the selfless are left exhausted, forgotten, and used. A Sigma understands that his life is his own, and he refuses to apologize for making himself the priority. That's not weakness, that's power. And that's why only monsters rise. Number 7. You must destroy the nice guy virus in your system. The nice guy virus is one of the most dangerous mental programs ever created, and it's designed to keep men weak. From childhood, you're told to be polite, agreeable, and always put others first. You're led to believe that if you're nice enough, patient enough, and self-sacrificing enough, the world will reward you. But that's a lie. Nice guys finish last, not because the world is unfair, but because they refuse to play the real game. They think being passive and accommodating will get them respect, success, and admiration. Instead, they get overlooked, stepped on, and discarded. People don't respect the guy who bends over backward to please them. They respect the man who sets boundaries, demands excellence, and takes what he wants without asking for permission. A monster doesn't waste time trying to be liked. He operates on raw willpower, unshackled from the need for approval. The nice guy mindset is nothing but a virus, a weak, self-destructive script that was installed in you to keep you tame. And like any virus, it must be eradicated. Delete the programming. Replace it with strength, purpose, and ruthless self-discipline. Because the moment you stop trying to be nice and start being powerful, the world will have no choice but to take you seriously. Number 8. Only the ruthless can keep their freedom. Freedom isn't something you're given. It's something you fight for and defend every single day. And the brutal truth is this: if you're not ruthless about protecting it, someone will take it from you. Look around. The world is full of traps disguised as opportunities. The stable job that locks you into a lifetime of wage slavery. The relationship that starts with love but ends with obligation. The expectations that society places on you, telling you what you should do, how you should act, and what kind of man you're allowed to be. Most men fall into these cages willingly, thinking they're making the right choices. A Sigma male, he sees the chains before they tighten. He refuses the leash before it even touches his neck. And that's why he must be ruthless. A man who hesitates to cut ties when needed will find himself drowning in obligations that don't serve him. A man who fears saying no will spend his life fulfilling someone else's vision instead of his own. A man who isn't willing to burn bridges when necessary will always be trapped by people who hold him back. Being ruthless isn't about being cruel. It's about refusing to be owned. The world will try to put you in a cage. A monster sets fire to every single one before it can close around him. Number 9. Power comes from fear, not love. Love is conditional. It fades, it shifts, it crumbles the moment it's no longer convenient. But fear is permanent. Fear keeps people in line. Fear ensures that no one dares to challenge you. History proves this over and over again. The most powerful leaders, conquerors, and rulers didn't hold their thrones because they were loved. They held them because people feared the consequences of defying them. The second a man builds his foundation on love, he gives others the power to destroy him. But when it's built on fear, no one moves against him unless they're ready to suffer the price. This doesn't mean walking around being reckless or cruel. True power doesn't come from unnecessary violence. It comes from controlled dominance. It means carrying yourself in a way that makes people think twice before disrespecting you. It means ensuring that when you speak, people listen. And it means making it clear, without saying a word, that crossing you is a mistake they'll regret. Most men seek to be liked. They want approval, validation, and affection. And that's why they stay weak. A monster doesn't care about being loved. He cares about being untouchable. Number 10. Most men will be weak until the end of time. Most men will never be strong, not because they can't be, but because they won't be. They'll live their entire lives obeying, hesitating, and hoping the world will reward their compliance. They won't take risks. They won't chase power. They won't choose themselves. And for that, they will remain weak, controlled, and ultimately forgotten. Society runs on this weakness. It needs men who will work jobs they hate, follow rules without question, and accept mediocrity as their destiny. And guess what? Most will. Not because they're forced to, but because they're too afraid to break free. A monster doesn't waste time trying to save these men. He doesn't argue with them, convince them, or drag them to the top. He focuses on his own power, his own evolution, his own path. And in doing so, he becomes what 99% of men will never be: untouchable, undeniable, and unforgettable. Number 11. Pain is fuel, not an obstacle. Pain is the great divider. It separates the weak from the unstoppable. Most men fear it, avoid it, and break under its weight. A monster, he thrives on it. He understands that pain isn't an obstacle, it's fuel. Every setback, every betrayal, every failure is raw energy waiting to be converted into power. Weak men let pain crush them. They complain, they quit, they drown in self-pity. But a monster absorbs it, feeds on it, and lets it sharpen him into something unbreakable. The worse the suffering, the greater the transformation. The man who has endured real pain, who has been alone, who has been broken, who has been through hell and kept going, is the man who no one can shake. He doesn't just survive hardship. He uses it to become stronger than those who never suffered. Weak men pray for comfort. Monsters embrace the fire, because they know that every burn, every scar, every brutal lesson is just another weapon in their arsenal. Number 12. Society rewards monsters, not victims. Society doesn't care about your struggles. It doesn't care about fairness, justice, or how badly you've been wronged. The brutal truth? The world rewards those who take action, not those who beg for sympathy. Weak men waste their lives complaining, blaming their circumstances, waiting for someone to recognize their suffering, hoping that one day things will magically change. They think if they cry loud enough, someone will come to save them. But that day never comes. Because in this world, victims are ignored, controlled, and discarded. A monster doesn't wait. He doesn't expect fairness, he doesn't cry about what's right, and he doesn't waste time seeking validation. He takes what he wants, through force, strategy, or sheer willpower. He understands that power is never given, it's seized, and the ones who hesitate, who beg, who wait, they get left behind. History has never been shaped by victims. It has been shaped by men who refused to accept weakness as their fate, the ones who saw what they wanted and ripped it from the hands of those too afraid to claim it. Most men will never understand this. They'll stay trapped in the illusion that if they just suffer long enough, if they just complain loudly enough, someone will fix their problems. A monster? He knows that's a lie. He knows the world doesn't reward the weak. It bows to the strong. Number 13. If you're not feared, you're disposable. In every group, in every social dynamic, in every hierarchy, there's always a bottom rung, and it belongs to the weakest man in the room. The one who tries too hard to be liked, the one who avoids conflict, the one who brings no power, no presence, no sense of danger. And guess what? He's the easiest to replace. Men who aren't feared or respected get treated like furniture. They're useful when needed, but no one cares when they're gone. They don't get priority. They don't get influence. They don't get opportunities. They get overlooked, dismissed, and discarded the moment they stop being convenient. A monster refuses to exist in that position. He ensures that people either respect him or fear him, but never ignore him. He moves with purpose. He speaks in a way that commands attention. He carries himself in a way that makes others think twice before disregarding him. Weak men beg for approval. Strong men demand recognition. And the most powerful men, they don't care if you love them, as long as you never forget what they're capable of. Weak men live and die unnoticed, controlled, and forgotten. They waste their lives begging for fairness, chasing approval, and avoiding conflict, never realizing that the world doesn't reward obedience. It rewards power. And power doesn't come from kindness, patience, or waiting your turn. It comes from becoming a monster. A monster isn't reckless, but he's feared. He isn't cruel, but he's untouchable. He isn't selfish in the way weak men define it. He's self-sufficient, self-driven, and self-made. He doesn't wait for permission, doesn't explain himself, and doesn't beg for respect. He takes it. Most men will never reach this level. They'll stay trapped in weakness, lost in excuses, and buried under the expectations of a world that wants them tame. But not you. If you have the will to break free, to sharpen yourself into something undeniable, and to become a force that cannot be controlled, then you will rise. And when you do, the world won't just notice. It will never forget. If this hit you differently, good. That means you're not like the rest. You're built for more, and you know it. Now, it's time to act. Subscribe to the channel if you refuse to live a weak, forgettable life. Like this video if you're ready to unleash your full power. Drop a comment and let me know. Are you staying trapped like the 99%, or are you rising above? And if you know someone who needs to hear this, share it with them, or don't. Let them stay blind while you move ahead. This isn't just a channel, it's a call to power. If you're ready for more, you know what to do.